Hello and welcome to X-Plane 11 and VATSIM network, and we're in the B200 King Air part on the ground in Glasgow, and plan this evening is to fly from Glasgow to Wick. This is the routing that SimBrief has calculated for us. Seems reasonable, and we've got, using XPilot, got the ATIS for Glasgow. In fact, I'm just gonna get it again in case it's changed. No, in fact it has. We're now on information kilo. Runway 05. Ooh, transition level is now 75. It was 80. Surface wind has moved around to 190. Okay. So it's close to being the other runway actually. And QNH is now 995. Okay. So let's file our flight plan. Okay, so as you couldn't see the XPilot flight plan window when I originally recorded this, I thought I'd just go over it again this time with the flight plan showing. But before showing you the XPilot flight plan screen, let's just look at the SimBrief output again so we can see where we get the information for the flight plan. And a lot of it's in the summary, so the routing here is in the summary. This is the departure from Glasgow, first waypoint, and then basically airway N560 pretty much, which goes up here round Inverness and up to Wick. So I actually normally look at this part, and this is the routing. So we've got the routing. The other thing we can get is we get the time en route, which is something you need to put in the VATSIM flight plan. Fuel available, the VATSIM flight plan wants it in hours and minutes. I'm not sure whether the SimBrief plan actually tells us hours and minutes of fuel. This is possibly it, but what I normally do is just go to the X-Plane weight balance screen, and once I've put in the block fuel that SimBrief has recommended, then X-Plane will give you the hours and minutes that you can fly for. So I normally just use that. Okay, so let's have a look at the. Let's just put this back to the summary. Let's have a look at what happens when you click the flight plan button in XPilot. It brings up this file flight plan screen, and flight type IFR, departure airport, destination airport, all quite simple. Alternate, I mean, SimBrief seems to come up with some wacky alternates sometimes. This case it is recommended going back to Glasgow, as I suppose you could go to Inverness, but you could also argue that if you're flying here for a reason, then yeah, you may as well just go back. So I guess it's anyway, as long as you've got enough fuel to make it back. So alternate is back to Glasgow. Departure time is obviously I usually put about sort of 20 minutes after I've filed the plan, or half an hour to get time to get the plane started, ready, taxi, etc. Time en route comes from the SimBrief timings. I kind of rounded it here, 1 hour 15. Fuel, the 2 hours 15 I got from X-Plane. Cruise speed. Now, you may know that for your aircraft. Obviously, it may depend on the altitude and the winds and so on. But what I've used is in the step-by-step, the waypoint breakdown of the flight plan here. There's lots of information. So one of the bits of information is your true airspeed here. So what I've done is at cruise, this is top of climb, flight level 190. So that's another thing we get, is that our cruising altitude. So cruising altitude of flight level 190, and true airspeed here around about 280. So I've used 280 for the cruise speed and 19,000 for the altitude. Now the route, you can pretty much just copy and paste the routing that SimBrief gives you, which is what I've done here, only you don't put the departure runway and the arrival runway in because, well, although I did put the arrival runway in, because of course those really should be assigned by ATC depending on your current wind conditions and other factors. So the departure's kind of interesting. If we look at the Navigraph charts for Glasgow, let's close this one. So if we look at, let's get the Glasgow charts up. If you look at the standard instrument departure, so lots of them, because we're heading north, it's going to be, you kind of have to look through them all. No, maybe one of the foil departures, and there's two different foil departures depending on whether runway 05 is in use or runway 23 is in use. So 3B for 05, 3A. SimBrief's actually picked out foil 3A, assuming that it's runway 23, but again ATC may change that, so it's best just to pick foil as the name of the departure, and then whether it's A or B will be assigned by ATC. And I have read that the way that you indicate that in your flight plan is you basically do airport code dot departure code, so that's indicating that we're expecting the foil departure could be 3A or 3B depending on the runway. And the foil departure ends at foil, waypoint foil. Then the rest of the route is essentially copied from the SimBrief route, and I guess I put runway 13 in here. I guess that's just indicating that's what we're expecting at the time, but of course that could change en route. One thing that I didn't fill in this time that I need to do next time is the equipment suffix, which is helpfully just a list of letters. But this is this indicates to the controller what type of navigation capability you have in your plane. Now there is on VATSIM there's a kind of help page for this. It's not particularly easy to understand, at least I didn't find it very easy to understand. Now, so the first thing you got to decide is are you RVSM or not RVSM. This is reduced vertical separation minima, so whether you can fly separated by 1,000 foot rather than 2,000 feet. I think it's only above a certain altitude, but I'm not sure. I guess is that all the aircraft in X-plane can do this because they've got accurate altimeters, they've got autopilots, etc. So you probably want to be in this part of the chart. Then you look at what kind of nav equipment your plane's got, whether you've got actually that's interesting because you can only pick DME. So okay, if you don't have any GPS or RNAV capability, then I guess you're down here anyway, and you'd be in the DME section maybe. So if you think you've got everything, which I mean the King Air 200 has got the Garmin GPSs which can do the RNAV approaches. So in my case here, and I have got transponder modes, I think L would be the correct suffix. If you didn't want to use the GPS, then I guess you'd pick A instead. So I didn't actually submit anything in here when I filed it, but next time I think I'm going to use L. Voice, I've ticked send and receive, and the other thing next time I'm going to do, and the reason for this will become apparent when you see the flight, is in the remarks I'm going to put something like unable custom waypoints or something. Because yeah, you'll see the reason for that. Okay, so that's essentially filing the flight plan. Once you filled all that in, just click File Flight Plan, and it's then submitted to VATSIM. File the flight plan. Let's get the ATIS. Okay, runway 05. Let's go back to here. Okay, so we need to do. Let's get rid of the browser now. Well, let's have a look. So we're parked here on the GA apron, runway 05. So we're expecting to taxi via Golf to holding point Golf 2, Golf 1, something like that. Right, I need to tune in my EGPF tower.com 1. So this is voice over me, and I think that that was the last thing I said apart from talking to ATC when I originally made this recording. The whole VATSIM thing got so intense that I couldn't keep up with doing both, so that's something I'm going to have to learn how to do. Anyway, here I am. I've tuned in using the .com1 command in XPilot, the tower, and I'm now setting Scottish Control as the backup frequency on COM1 because I expect to get handed over to them on departure. Glasgow Tower, good evening. Gamma 968 Charlie requesting radio check, please.
Station call, what's your call sign?
Gamma 968 Charlie.
Gamma 968 Charlie, visibility 5.
5 also, thank you. B200 King Air, we're parked on the GA apron. I have information, Kilo, I'd like to request clearance to Wick.
Gamma 968 Charlie, Roger, stand by. Gamma 968 Charlie, have your clearance when you're ready.
Ready to copy, 968 Charlie.
Gamma 968 Charlie, you're cleared to Wick. It's the foil 3 Bravo departure, initial 6,000 feet, and your squawks 2606.
2606. So cleared to Wick, foil 3 Bravo departure, initially 6,000 feet, and squawk 2606, Gamma 968 Charlie. At this point I was expecting a call back from the controller to confirm that my readback was correct. I didn't get it. I suspect that maybe something in the client or the VATSIM audio dropped out here because as you'll see in a minute as well, there's another aircraft that calls for clearance and doesn't seem to get any response, so maybe some kind of glitch happened. So anyway, now that I've got my clearance, I'm starting to set things up.
Glasgow, hello, Beeline 9, Romeo Bravo, CRJ 900 on stand 1. I think we're on 15 or 16, and we're class clearance to Dublin.
So you'll notice this aircraft doesn't get a reply. Here I'm using the .x shortcut command in XPilot to set the squawk code, which you can do directly on the transponder that you can see sort of in the centre on the right there, but it's just more awkward to do, so it's easier to use the shortcut command. And I also am setting this squawk transponder to standby at the moment because you don't want to put it on fully until you get to the runway. Next thing I'm doing is I'm setting the altitude for the autopilot to 6,000.
Glasgow Tower, hello, Beeline 9, Romeo Bravo, CRJ 900 on stand 15, request clearance to Dublin.
Beeline 9, Romeo Bravo, Glasgow Tower, good evening, you're cleared to Dublin. It's the Tala 6 Bravo departure. Initial 6,000, your squawk 4461.
Roger, clear to Dublin. It's the Tunbury 6 Bravo departure confirm, and 4461 on the squawk, initial climb 6,000, Beeline 9 Romeo Bravo.
Beeline 9 Romeo Bravo, Tunbury 6 Bravo is correct. Readback is correct, report ready for operation start.
Wick, thanks, Beeline 9 Romeo Bravo.
I'm now gone into the GPS, the X-Plane 430, and I'm setting the departure, which is foil 3B, which is basically runway 5 heading for a bit, and then a sort of turn to the north to intercept the airway at the foil waypoint. So by this point, because I now in my mind was thinking, right, I've got to get everything ready for departure, I have to get ready for engine start, I have to make sure I've got the right nav and everything set up. I'd kind of lost the power of speech, so I kind of just stopped any kind of stream commentary. So I've just set the heading bug there to runway heading. Tower Gamma 968 Charlie, request engine start, please.
Gamma 968 Charlie, you stand up as approved to call me holding short of Alpha.
We'll call holding short of Alpha, Gamma 968 Charlie. And so I don't think I needed to say anything other than Wilco there. But certainly not Wilco and repeating the holding point. One or the other would probably been correct. So now, in theory, I need to get ready for engine start. I notice I've turned on the beacon. What am I going to do next? Going for a right engine start. Checking the props clear. Start to engage. Wait for about 15% on the turbo engage. Introduce fuel. Make sure the ITT doesn't go into the red line. Turn off the ignition, turn on the generator. Check that the ammeter is showing some load on the from the generator. What I should have done now is probably put the condition lever to high idle whilst the generator's on. I didn't do that. I've left it in low idle, so it's probably not right because I don't know whether the engine's not going to supply enough power. It's going to overheat or something, but it should have been in high idle potentially. Now it's left engine start, so I've turned on left ignition. Left engine starting to rotate. I'm going to introduce fuel for the left engine. And then we'll turn off left ignition and turn on the left generator as well. Okay, so we have both engines running, both generators on. I'm just looking at what warning lights I've got on there. And I'm randomly tuning in the VOR to match the Glasgow VOR, as you can see here on the departure diagram, just in case we do lose the GPS for some reason, or we lose nav. We can in theory follow a heading from the VOR, or at least we'll know what direction we're going if we have the bearing pointer shown. So I'm presetting the mode of the autopilot here to be nav and altitude select with indicated airspeed. And I'm using the rocker switch to set the airspeed. In this case, I think I set it to, if you look at the top left of the screen where I've got some explained data shown, one of the second row there is the is autopilot information, and I've set the speed on there to 150. It probably should have been more like 160, but anyway, I've set it to 150. If you're interested in how you get the autopilot data shown, there's another video that shows the autopilot in the King Air C90 that explains how to get that data shown on screen, but you just need to search for it in the data output options. Okay, so I'm moving the props were feathered, so I'm now putting the props full fine. I'm now thinking, hang on, bleed air, I need to turn the bleeds on, pressurize the cabin. So I just can't remember whether the bleed switches need to be up or down. Of course they need to be up, because in pretty much everything in this aircraft the switch up is on, but I've kind of forgotten this. So anyway, I've got them on now. Got the taxi light on. We're parked kind of in a corner of the general aviation parking lot. And we're starting to taxi. For some reason here, and I've never done this before, taxiing out of this particular point spot, I seem to get a wheel or something stuck in the grass. Yeah, it's the extra pressure of the VATSIM flight. And now I'm kind of stuck, so I have to rev the engines up to actually get moving again. It's quite embarrassing. Anyway, we do manage to get back on the concrete. So we follow the line down here and then take a right, and that leads out of the GA parking towards the holding point Alpha, where the controller wanted me to hold and report. No, what have I forgotten at this point? Yeah, auto feather. I mean, this is all stuff that should have been done before even moving off from parking. I've forgotten also to sync the flight plan to the second Garmin. So what I normally do is cross-fill the flight plan. So I set it up on the top one, cross-fill, and then use the second one to show the map display, where the top one just shows the default next bearing display. Just playing with the zoom there to get sensible looking map chart view.
Glasgow, hello, B9, 9 Romeo Bravo, request push and start, stand 15.
B9 9 Romeo Bravo, you're pushing start, approved, QNH 995, Victor Pascal, Cobra, thanks. 905 push start approved, B-line 9 Romeo Bravo.
Gamma 968 Charlie is holding short of Alpha.
Gamma 968 Charlie, you can accept a departure from Delta 1.
Affirmative, yes, Gamma 968 Charlie.
Gamma 968 Charlie, thank you. Left on Alpha, Golf and hold Delta 1.
Left on Alpha, Golf and hold Delta 1, Gamma 968 Charlie. So we're going to be following the red line there. That was on the ground chart, but oh my goodness. So I had done no preparation there before this flight. I didn't even anticipate that we might be given the option to take off from not from the end of the runway, but from part way along the runway, because there's a delta departure point. And of course this is the type of aircraft that can most likely handle that fine. It doesn't need particularly long takeoff run. But I've done no calculation to see what the minimum takeoff run is. I don't know exactly how much runway there is left there. I mean, I've kind of looked at the total length quickly there on the chart, gone 2,600 meters. That's what, a bit more than half, at least that's going to be at least what, 1,500 meters. And I know I can take off from the runway in Wick, which is 1,800 or slightly below that. So yeah, so I just say okay. It was really what in the real world you'd have to properly know your minimum takeoff distance. You'd also want to look properly at the airport chart and consider especially the type of aircraft you're in, you might be given the option to depart, you know, on a shorter segment of the runway. So have all that worked out in advance, and don't just kind of panic when you're asked, can you do it, and then say yes. In this case it's fine, but a bit more planning would have helped. So we're now taxiing Alpha, turn on to Golf, and then I think the second exit from Golf on the right is Delta, where we're going to hold at Delta 1. I think something else I've done here, possibly already, is to put one notch of flaps in, and normally I would take off in the King Air with no flaps needed, but I'm thinking, well, it's going to be a bit embarrassing if I've said I can accept this shorter departure length and fail to take off, so I'm going to put approach flaps on, and I don't know what the rotation speed is. Again, that I should know that. I know that normally rotate around 100, just over 100 without flaps, but as you'll see during the takeoff, I kind of end up doing that anyway. I don't really gain anything from the flaps other than, I guess, slightly slowing down the takeoff roll. Although I suppose if I had to rotate earlier, then at least there would have been a bit more lift.
And Beeline 97 Romeo Bravo, request taxi. Beeline 9 Romeo Bravo, taxi ahead left on Golf, hold Golf 1 for 05.
Left Golf 1, survive. Beeline 9 Romeo Bravo.
Okay, I've switched on the landing lights. I think I've turned on the strobe. We're holding at Delta 1. Gamma 968 Charlie holding at Delta 1.
Gamma 968 Charlie via Delta 1, runway 05, clear takeoff, wind 270 degrees less than 5.
Clear takeoff at runway 05, Gamma 968 Charlie. I haven't actually turned the strobe on there, I don't think. I should also have set the transponder to mode C, altitude report, which I think I have done. I turn the strobe on now. Yeah, and I think I've already done the transponder. So strobes are on, landing lights on, transponders on, autoweather set, heading bug set. One notch of flaps in. No idea what the rotation speed is. What could possibly go wrong? Slightly thrown there because normally when you come onto a runway at the end you get the nice sort of coloured runway end lights, and of course this is joining about 2/3 of the way along the runway, so you don't get that. But using the heading bug here just to make sure that we are actually on the runway or not on part of the taxiway. Actually, I think I did rotate there slightly below 100, so and there was plenty of runway, so if anyone else in a King Air with the same fuel and weight and centre of gravity and everything as this one gets asked that question, then it looks like it's safe to say that you can take off from Delta 1. Okay, now I'm climbing at a ridiculous rate because I've got the indicated airspeed pinned at 150. I think I have engaged. Yep, I've engaged nav and alt modes. I've turned on the autopilot. I've got key bindings for yaw damper and autopilot. Turn those on because I don't want to not. I want the autopilot to follow the SID, the standard instrument departure route. At the moment we're on runway heading, and then there's a kind of left turn coming up.
Gamma 968 Charlie, contact Scottish Control 135.525, bye-bye.
525. Over to Scottish Control on 135.525. Good evening, Gamma 968 Charlie. So now switching COM 1 over to Scottish Control frequency. Scottish Control, good evening. Gamma 968 Charlie with you. Foil 3B departure from Glasgow, 4,000 feet for 6,000.
Gamma 968 Charlie, Scottish Control, squawk ident, climb flight level 190.
Ident and 190, Gamma 968 Charlie.
Scottish Control, good evening, schedule 101 Papa, flight level 380 with you.
I've actually got a button on my joystick mapped to ident.
Sky Travel 101 Papa, Scottish Control, roger.
So I press the ident button and I am trying to set the autopilot altitude now to 19,000. I should probably at the same time set standard QNH because that's a flight level we've been told to fly to, so I should set the altimeter to 1013, but I don't do that till later. What am I doing now randomly? Oh, turning on some pitot heat and prop heat because I'm thinking
Gamma
it's cold.
968 Charlie, clear to leave control airspace on track foil.
Cleared on track foil, Gamma 968 Charlie.
Gamma 968 Charlie, cleared to leave controlled airspace.
Cleared to leave controlled airspace, Gamma 968 Charlie. So
Easy 462 Whiskey, deconfliction service, descent to altitude 4,000 feet, QNH 996 hectopascal.
Deconfliction service and down to 4,000, cheesy, 462 Whiskey.
So I'm going direct to foil here.
462 Whiskey, cleared VOR ILS DME approach runway 05.
Cleared VOR ILS DME, VOR ILS DME approach, runway 05, easy 462 Whiskey.
Scottish, good evening, Shuttle 16 Bravo, Mach decimal 78, flight level 340.
Shuttle 16 Bravo, Scottish Control, hello, when ready, descend flight level 240.
Flight level 240, Shuttle 16 Bravo.
Speedbridge 733, descend flight level 130.
1307, Speedbird 733, thank you.
Scottish, good evening, Shuttle 16 Golf with you, flight level 300, Mach decimal 76.
Shuttle 16 Golf, Scottish Control, turn left heading 300 degrees, descend flight level 240.
240 and left 300 degrees.
So what I was doing there was basically setting the second Garmin to also be routing directly to foil so that the map display is correct, because although originally they were cross-filled, then after that if you direct route on one of them you have to do the same on the other one. So what's happened here?
Gamma 968 Charlie, deconfliction service.
Deconfliction service, Gamma 968 Charlie, is that the controller has given us a direct to foil, which is the end of the SID.
Shuttle 16 Bravo 1 conversion, speed 290 knots or greater.
290 greater, Shuttle 16
So it's effectively shortcutting some of the turns and the full routing of the SID.
Shuttle 16 Golf on conversion speed 270 knots or less. Shuttle 16 Golf on conversion speed 270 knots or less.
270 knots or less, Shuttle 16 Golf.
And because that means we're effectively going outside the controlled airspace, because the controlled airspace is the SID, then we were given clearance to do that, which we had to read back, and we're on a deconfliction service outside controlled
Shuttle
airspace.
16 Golf turn right heading 335.
Right, 335, Shuttle 16 Golf.
Which means that if there's any other traffic that the controller has...
Shuttle 16 Bravo, descend flight level 130.
Descend flight level 130, Shuttle 16 Bravo.
we'd be given vectors to avoid the other traffic. So now I'm spending a lot of time sort of faffing around with the navigation. I'm not looking at all at what altitude I'm at, what speed we're doing, the fact that the torque from the engines and props has dropped right off, so I should increase the throttles.
Sorry, center speed bird 733. Just some information really. I've never done this approach before. Is it like a hold circle and then come in? Speedbird 733, and normally you'll receive vectors from Tartan, the fix before the final. So you should just expect vectors from Tartan by the approach controller. Roger, no worries, that'll do. Thank you, 733.
So I think my concern here was I've been given a direct to, and I just wanted to make sure that the GPS and the nav was actually going to go there and not sort of go off course or anything like that.
Departure low, B-line 9 Romeo Bravo, climb 6,000, pass 4,300. B-line 9 Romeo Bravo, Scottish Control, squawk it in, climb slat level 180.
You can see there that we're just past
climb 180, B-line 9
foil,
Romeo Bravo.
which is the sort of red cross. So the next waypoint's in
Shuttle
Bass.
16 Golf, descend flight level 130, resume on navigation, direct Abbevie.
160, and can you repeat the direct, please?
Shuttle 16 Golf negative, descend flight level 130, resume on navigation, direct Abbevie, Alpha Bravo Echo Victor India.
Flight level 130 and direct at Bevy. Shuttle 16 Golf.
Shuttle 16 Bravo, speed 270 knots.
270 knots, Shuttle 16 Bravo.
And let's have a look now then. So I haven't pulled the prop RPM back to climb RPM.
Alaska 1024, contact London Control 127.8255.
127.825, thanks for the service for Alaska 1024.
I keep bringing up the map. I'm on a thing. I keep bringing up the map to make sure that I'm on the airway, which is the kind of blue line on the map, making sure I'm on track. I'm just paranoid about
Gamma 968 Charlie, clear to enter controlled airspace on track in BIS.
Clear to enter controlled airspace on track in Bass, Gamma 968 Charlie.
Gamma 968 Charlie, correct.
So we're now back on our intended routing, airway November 560. We're back in controlled airspace, so that's all good. So now please let's have a look at the throttles and the props, and let's get our climb speed up because it's dropped to what, 700 feet per minute.
EZ74 X-ray Foxtrot, descend flight level 90.
Flight level 90, EZ74 X-ray Foxtrot.
Just set the heading bug there to match our route. Always handy to have that there in case you need to go to heading mode and you don't want to suddenly veer off in another direction. Now I'm still not on standard QNH either, so hopefully I'll spot that in a minute as well. But I think the routing's okay now. Yeah, I've finally woken up and decided to look at something else. So turning off the landing lights, turning off auto feather, turning on prop sync, and I've dropped the prop RPM back to 1900 for climb. I've increased the torque, and you'll notice by moving the throttles forward, you'll notice that our climb speed is shot back up, which is great. So we're meant to be climbing to flight level 190 in a minute. Hopefully, I think I remember to set the altimeter to 1013. No, before that I decided it's more important to tune in the Wick VOR, which I'm probably not going to need to much later in the flight anyway, but oh, now I'm doing the altimeter. So 1013 standard setting for flight levels.
Speedbird 733, descend flight level 90. Roger, 990, Speedbird 733, thank you. North Trans 2, Echo India, descend flight level 160, level by Nimat.
Descend flight level 160 to be level at Nimat, North Trans 2 Echo India.
North Trans 2 Echo India, contact Shannon Control 131.150, bye.
Over to Shannon, thank you for your service. Goodbye, North Trans 2 Echo India.
Easy 74 X-ray Foxtrot, turn left heading 300 degrees, vectoring ILS approach, runway 05.
Descend entry 00 degrees and 05, easy 74 X-ray Foxtrot.
Easy 74 X-ray Foxtrot, descend flight level 80.
5080, easy 74 X-ray Foxtrot.
Speedbird 733, leave Eskdale, heading 335. Roger, leave Eskdale, heading 335, Speedbird 733.
I think I turned off the prop here because I kind of looked out the window and decided that we were above the
Speedbird
clouds.
733, report heading to Edinburgh radar 121.2, bye bye.
So we're climbing at a much better rate now.
Can I just let the frequency again, Speedbird 733? Speedbird 733, report heading to Edinburgh radar 121.2. 121.2, Speedbird 733, thanks for service. Gamma 968 Charlie, radar control.
Radar control, Gamma 968 Charlie. I think radar control just means that you can be vectored at any time by the controller because they have you on their radar. So now we're reaching top of climb. I'm slightly panicking that I've got the altitude mode wrong and we're going to burst the top of the climb.
Eskdale, heading 335, descend flight level 90.
Descend flight level 90, leave Eskdale at heading 335, shuttle 16 Bravo.
So we've reached top of climb. I don't even think I've looked out the window apart from checking that the clouds.
Could you just confirm that we've still got the speed restriction of 270 knots for shuttle 16 Bravo?
Shuttle 16 Bravo, away from for now.
It's flying at night time. You don't even
Roger, shuttle 16 Bravo.
need any scenery. You can have so much fun with all your instruments. And that sense of panic of making sure you're on the right route and you're not going to bust the altitude when someone's watching you. So
Easy 460 Whiskey, runway 05, clear to land, wind 040 degree, 13 knot.
Clear to land runway 05, easy 462 Whiskey.
small amount of breathing time now where I'm just doing a general sort of scan of switches and instruments. And yeah, bringing the prop RPM back to cruise RPM about 18,000, 1800, 18,000.
Easy 74 X-ray Foxtrot, range 35 miles, runway 05, descent to altitude 6,000 feet, QNH 995 hectopascal.
10 to altitude 6,000 feet, 995, hectopascal 74 X-ray Foxtrot.
Shuttle 16 Bravo, report heading and speed to Edinburgh radar 121.2, bye bye.
Nope, still 121.2, and we'll be report speed and heading. Thank you, shuttle 16 Bravo.
So I'm brave enough now to press another view key and have a look outside for a brief moment. Now I'm back in the cockpit. I'm sort of starting to think about descending, and I'm thinking, how far am I away from my destination and when's my top of descent point? Cruising at flight level 190. I also notice here that the DME distance indicator, which we'll see in a minute, on the right there is showing 9 miles, 9 nautical miles. I'm thinking, well, I'm a lot further away from the Wick VOR than that, so I'm wondering if I've mistuned or I'm picking up another VOR. But in fact, all that's happened is because I'm over 100 miles away and the display only has 2 digits, it's just reading 108, but I've forgotten this. Anyway, this is the approach we're going to be following. We're coming in on the DME arc from the south, which is where the red arrow is. But the initial approach fix, as you'll find out soon, is the circled point. Anyway, the altitude at the circle point is above 2,600 feet. In fact, the MSA, which is off the top of the chart here, is, I think it's 3,400. So I need to descend to roughly 3,000 feet. I'm at 19,000 feet, so I need to lose 16,000. I need to lose 16,000, so the normal rule of thumb I follow is 3 times the altitude divided by 1,000. That's 316, so that'd be 48, let's call it 50 miles. But I need 50 miles to do the actual descent, nautical miles. But I need to be at the 3,000 feet at 9 miles before Wick, so basically let's call it 60 miles. So I need to start my descent when I'm 60 miles away from Wick. I'm now looking at the flight plan as well to see the distance from the last waypoint there, Chin, to Wick is 45, so I'm thinking, well, I need 45 plus 6 is 51, so I need to start descending about 9 miles before Chin, which is in fact what I've written down on my pad that you can't see. But so that's kind of, I could base my descent off that. So if we're still on flying on navigation and waypoints and they're on the GPS display, when it says the next leg is to Chin, I know that I need to start when there's 9 miles left to Chin. But also I'm thinking, and if you see now on the right, in fact the DME is now reading 99.7, so it's just gone under 100 miles. So the other way I can know when to start my descent is when the DME readout reaches 60 miles. 16 nautical miles from Wick VOR, and that's when I would need to start descending.
Easy 74 X-ray short turn right heading 005 when established localizer, runway 05, descend on the glide path.
Turn right 005 and when established descend on the glide path, easy 74 X-ray Foxtrot.
ICR 17 Kilo, report MAC number to Amsterdam radar 125.750 by.
Report MAC number to Amsterdam radar 125.750.
Easy 74 X-ray Foxtrot, contact Glasgow Tower 118.8, bye.
118.8 for the tower, easy 74 X-ray Foxtrot, connect for service.
So here I'm just checking my fuel gauges and also checking the transfer pumps are on auto, because I think I had one flight recently where the transfer pumps were in the wrong position and then I just ran out of fuel, so I thought, oh no, I really don't want that to happen.
Gamma 968 Charlie, route direct Wick, Whiskey India Kilo.
Route direct Whiskey India Kilo, Gamma 968 Charlie.
Gamma 968 Charlie, cleared to leave controlled airspace on track Wick, when ready, descend flight level 80.
So clear to leave controlled airspace on track to Wick, and when ready descend flight level 80, Gamma 968 Charlie. So what's happened now is we've been given a shortcut because we're routing up to Inverness at the moment, and if we were to follow the airway we would turn northwest at Inverness and go up the coast, and it would be a longer route, use more fuel, take more time. So the controller's giving us
9 Romeo Bravo, when ready descend flight level 160, level by Nimat.
direct routing.
Level Nimat, descend 160 when ready, beeline 7 Romeo Bravo.
Beeline 9 Romeo Bravo, contact Shannon 131.150, good day.
131.150, by beeline 97 Bravo, bye.
So what I'm doing on the GPS is basically going to the flight plan, finding the waypoint for the Wick VOR and hitting the direct to button and activating that, which means as we're following nav, the GPS for our course on the autopilot, we will now start routing direct to Wick, and we won't be turning northwest at Inverness, which is great. But the other thing that's now thrown me...
Gamma 968 Charlie, say requested approach.
We'd like the VOR DME for runway 13 if possible, Gamma 968 Charlie.
Gamma 968 Charlie, roger, and we're with the holding.
With the arc and then the beacon outbound, if possible, Gamma 968 Charlie.
Roger.
So now I'm thrown with two things: the descent to 8,000, which is an intermediate, and the fact that I'd forgotten, of course, with the VOR DME procedure, there's two different two alternate procedures basically. There's the arc, or there's the hold entry, and if you look on the chart, you see that you could, the other option, if you don't want to do the arc, you can fly straight to the VOR, enter the hold, it would be a parallel entry, turn back to the hold and then go outbound 8 miles and then turn in. So yeah, on the map here you can see the route we're now on, which is following the dashed line. And I'm now trying to work out when to start to descend to be at 8,000 feet at the right time, and there's no need to do anything. In fact, there's no need to do any other calculations. I've already worked out that if I want a steady descent from 19,000 to 3,000, I start at 60 miles, which, by the way, if you look at the VR reading is coming up, it's no different. I've been given 8,000 feet unless we were expecting to reach 8,000 feet and maintain that for some time, then I would have to add some extra miles on for descent at the beginning. So in fact, all I need to do is just start my descent at 60 miles as previously planned, except as I'm doing here, set the target altitude to be 8,000. Now in my head I'm going, oh, 8,000, well that leaves me 5,000 to get to 3,000 and 15 miles. I'm trying to do all these calculations, not needed at all. Just start the descent as previously planned, and in fact which I have done now as I've reached 60 miles. And yeah, I really don't need to work anything else out. So if you think about it,
Scottish Centre, good evening to you, it's Ryanair 33 X-ray 0, flight level 240, ready for descent. Ryanair 33 X-ray 0, Scottish Control, descent flight level 100. Flight level 100 for Ryanair 33 X-ray 0.
the controller's not going to hold us at 8,000 for longer than required, and also he will know how long we then need to descend to the procedure altitude. So yeah, the initial descent point still stands. But the point about the procedure is an important one. If you've got a procedure, have a look if there are alternate ways, alternate entry points, or a hold and a course reverser, or a hold and an arc, and just make sure you're comfortable with all of them, or at least you know which one you want, or maybe have an alternate. The problem with the arc approach is that officially you can only really start the arc from one of the two airways, N560 or Yankee 904. You can't join, as I kind of thought you could, in intermediate points on the arc.
Gamma 968 Charlie, are you able to direct Wick DME 9 radial 052?
This throws me. 052. Gamma 968 Charlie. Sorry, could you repeat, please?
Gamma 968 Charlie, are you able to create a fix that is Wick DME 9 radial 052 to join the arc? Alternatively, you can join the arc direct from Wick.
Wick DME 9 052, yes, affirmative, Gamma 968 Charlie.
Gamma 968 Charlie, roger, deconfliction service, descend to altitude 1,000, correction, descend to altitude 3,400 feet, QNH 996 hectopascal.
So deconfliction service and descend to altitude 3,400 on QNH 996, Gamma 968 Charlie. Okay, so I've now been cleared to descend all the way down to the MSA, which on the chart is 3,400 for the direction that we're arriving from. So I'm setting the autopilot altitude 3,400, and sensibly this time I'm setting the QNH on the altimeter to 996, as we're now on a continuous descent through the transition level. But I have the problem now that I've said that we can route to the fix at the start of the arc, which is 9 nautical miles out on the 52 radial to Wick, and I'm now remembering that you can do that in the default FMC in X-Plane, so the one that's fitted to things like the Q400, but you can't do it in the X-Plane Garmin 430, or I don't think the 530 either. You can in the real world ones, but you can't do custom waypoint. So what I should have done is then gone back to the controller and said sorry, unable. But what I'm trying to do now is basically route to the fix by tuning in the VOR on the HSI display.
Ryanair 33 X-ray Zulu, contact order Grove radar 128.5, goodbye. 128.5, thanks for your service, Ryanair 33 X-ray Zulu.
Setting the 052 radial, you can see from the course deviation bar that we would need to steer left to intercept that radial, which is correct. But what we want to do is steer left at the right angle to hit the radial 9 miles out. So I'm just kind of guessing that it's going to be a few degrees, and then I cheat and look at the map and explain, and this is terrible. I'm really shocked that I did this. So the other alternative we were offered was to join the arc at Wick, Whiskey India Kilo. Now I'm not quite sure how you do that. I think you'd probably have to fly to the beacon and then do a course reversal, then fly out on the 232 radial to 9 DME, then turn onto the arc, which would be a complete, well, it would be a complete waste of time really. If you're going to fly to the beacon, you might as well use the holding point entry. So the other thing I could have said here was that we are unfortunately unable to join the arc at the initial approach fix, circled in red. Can we have the hold entry procedure instead? And yet another thing I could have done, as I realised later, was that if you look at all the navigation waypoints that are in the X-Plane nav database, or the Navigraph nav database, I'm not quite sure which one it is, there is actually a waypoint already built in for 9 miles out on that radial, and you can see it here. I've used little nav map here and zoomed in on the map with the waypoints indicated, and yeah, D232 India. So that, I think the naming convention is the D is like DME, 232 is the radio.
And ready for descent. Says your car, Mr. Coulson. Easy 89 at Yankee Romeo. Easy 89 Yankee Romeo, Scottish, descend flight level 200.
And the I is 9
Descent
miles
flight level 200, easy 89
out on that radio, because it's like the rest of the alphabet of the miles. So A is 1, B is 2, C is 3, etc. So I is 9 miles. So D232I, if I had just gone to the flight plan, added a new waypoint before Whiskey India Kilo, put D232I, that would have been the waypoint we wanted. Instead, here I am, looking at the X-Plane map, going, yeah, that looks about right, and cheating basically. So, yeah, lesson learned here. Next time, if I'm not approaching on an airway, I'm gonna go for the hold entry. No, I'm still sort of searching around here to see if there's a way I can route to a custom waypoint, but of course there isn't. As it turns out, the heading that I am on, I'm now actually the autopilot in heading mode, by the way, and I'm kind of tracking by eye using the course deviation bar to see if we can get it to come in about 9 miles out. And I'm looking at the distance and kind of seeing how much the bar is starting to move. Well, it's not really moving yet. Just kind of I'm looking at the X-Plane map and just kind of guessing. As it turns out, the heading we're on is not far off being correct for that initial approach fix. So really now it's just a case of keeping an eye on the altitude, keeping an eye on airspeed, and trying to keep an eye on distance and course to see if we can hit the 9 miles out on that radial.
Gamma 968 Charlie, cleared VOR DME, approach runway 13, report beacon outbound.
Cleared VOR DME, runway 13, will report beacon outbound, Gamma 968 Charlie. Okay, great. All we've got to do now is get ourselves to the initial approach fix and turn right onto the arc.
Scottish Control, good evening. Easy 6-3 Charlie Quebec, and goes out 1 Delta departure from Edinburgh at 6,000 feet.
Easy 6-3 Charlie Quebec, Scottish Control, squawk ident, climb flight level 350.
Squawk ident 350, easy 6-3 Charlie Quebec.
Scottish, good evening. Speedbird 2 at Juliet Papa with you, flight level 240, squawk 3270.
Speedbird 2 at Chile Papa, Scottish Control, Lannick 2 Alpha arrival, expect ILS approach, runway 05.
Lannick 2 Alpha arrival 05 for Glasgow. Speedbird 2 at Juliet Papa.
I suppose another thing I could have asked the controller as well for is, can I just could I have a heading to intercept the N560 airway? Because I'm sure that
EV89 Yankee Romeo, descend flight level 100.
Descend flight level 100, easy 89 Yankee Romeo.
although it would have been a longer route, we would have then been on the correct radial and would have just had to fly to 9 DME before turning.
Easy 63 Charlie Quebec, route direct Suffolk, Sierra Uniform Bravo Uniform Kilo.
Route direct Suffolk, easy 63 Charlie Quebec. Good evening, Scottish Control, easy 74 Uniform Victor with you, flight level 360.
Easy 74 Uniform Victor, Scottish Control, when ready, descend flight level 200.
When ready, descend flight level 200, easy 74 Uniform Victor.
United 59, London, Scottish Control.
So we're getting close to the initial approach fix now, 14 miles out, and the initial approach fix is at 9, and I think the course deviation bar starts to come in soon, which is good news for me. It means we're approaching the 52 radial. Yep, there's the bar just starting to move towards the needle.
Scottish Hello, easy 54 Papa Lima with you, flight level 240, overhead ribbon.
Easy 54 Papa Lima, Scottish Control, Lannick 2 Alpha arrival.
Lannick 2 Alpha, easy 54 Papa Lima.
And that's 11 DME, so we've got another 2 DME to go before we start to turn onto the arc, and the bar is coming in now nicely. So we're not too far off, but more by luck than judgment. Okay, so we are about to approach the start of the DME arc procedure.
Scottish Control Delta 991
Delta 9912, Scottish Control, roger. Easy 89 Yankee Romeo, contact Aldergrove radar 128.5 gray.
128.5, have a good day to easy 89 Euro.
So 9 DME there, I turn the heading bug
Speedbird
80
2H at
degrees
Papa, when ready,
to the
descend
right.
flight level 130.
When ready, descend the flight level 130. Sorry, Speedbird 2 at
That gets us onto the arc. And now I'm going to move the course
United
VOR
59, Scottish.
by 10 degrees at a time, swinging it round to the west. So I'm a little bit overturned here, so I hold the heading and turn the bearing pointer another 10 degrees, I think that's the 30 degree radial now. And you can see now we've got sort of a 90 degree angle between our heading and the radial, which means we're on the arc. Distance is about 7.4, so that's not too bad. We need to be about 7 miles out, so that's sort of within limits, I think. Now I'm going to do turn 10, twist 10. So each 10 degrees we steer left 10 degrees and change the bearing 10 degrees. And essentially we just keep doing that, keeping an eye on the distance, try and keep it round about 7, and then we should be following the arc. And we don't turn in until the 315 radial. Again, that's marked on the procedure, the point that where you want to start turning in. So this is actually quite a long arc to follow. So I think with hindsight it would have definitely been more efficient to go to the hold, fly out for 1 minute, turn back in, and then fly out for 8, and we're on final. Base turn final. Anyway, we're on the arc now. Quite like doing arcs anyway. Distance is not too bad. We're 7.5 miles. If you notice if you're too far out or too far in, you can obviously correct for that by turning a bit more or turning a bit less each 10 degree point. Is that 350 we're at now? Yeah, looks about right for 3. So we're just crossing the 350 radial. This is radial 2, the Wick VOR. So I've just changed the radial to 340, and I've actually missed out a bit of the arc there to speed things up. So we're now at 330. And as you can see there, the line mark 135, the reciprocal of that is 315. So when we see that we're on the 315 radial inbound, we will turn in to turn the
74 Uniform Victor, descend flight level 100.
Descend flight level 100, EG74 Uniform Victor.
And we're still at 7.3, so distance wise we're doing quite well on the arc.
EZ54 Papa Lima, when ready, descend flight level 130.
Okay, that's 320.
When ready, descend flight level 130.
So we're looking for 315 as a crossing point. In practice, at this sort of speed, you don't need to start your turn. In this sort of aircraft, you don't need to start your turn in too quickly. So in fact, and I've changed the heading bug. Changing the heading bug basically to 299, which is the course we want to be flying inbound to the beacon. And actually, I think we end up turning a bit too sharply, so we have to sort of widen the turn out slightly. I've also changed the VOR bearing to be 299 as well, so we can go into nav mode and follow that bearing to the VOR. And that's nav mode on the autopilot. We're about 5 miles from the VOR, which is positioned sort of partway along the runway, so when we reach the VOR we're basically over the field. And then as we cross over the VOR to track out, we'll report beacon outbound to the controller. And you might notice at this point I'm still at 3,400 feet, and it's my mistake here, because we were cleared for the procedure. We should now be descending with the procedure. Should have turned onto the arc and then gone down to 2,600 feet, and we should now be at 1,800 feet. So we're too high. We're still at the limit that the controller cleared us to before he cleared us for the procedure.
74 Uniform Victor, contact Aldergrove radar 128, correction, 128.5, bye-bye.
As you'll see, I do ask if we're clear to descend, but I should have known that already.
Have a good evening.
EZ63 Charlie, Quebec, contact London Control 127.825, good day.
When we do start to descend, we haven't got so much time to do it. So we're now approaching the VOR of 1.3 miles. And when once we cross over the VOR, we need to track outbound. And looking at the chart, the radial is 292 degrees for Cat C and Cat D. I don't know if we're Cat C, we're probably a B plus or something, so probably I should have gone for something in between the 292 and the 303. Those are the two options. But I go for 292. It just means that when we do our base turn again, it's a little bit too long, but it's okay. So I think, yeah, we're now on the 292. Scottish Control, Gamma 968 Charlie is beacon outbound.
Gamma 968 Charlie, roger, report final runway 13.
We'll report final, and are we cleared to descend with the procedure, Gamma 968 Charlie?
Gamma 968 Charlie, if you're cleared for the approach, you can make the descent as per the profile.
So the controller there reminding us that, yeah, when you're cleared for the approach,
127825.
it's not just
63 Charlie Quebec.
the approach in space, but it's also the vertical profile you're cleared for. So I'm now taking us down to 1800. Rather more sharply than you would normally want at this late stage, but it's okay. We've got enough distance because we need to fly out now to 8 DME. We're at 4, so we'll just about make it. You can see some clouds now actually as well in front of us. Hopefully, this is another problem I've got, is that of course it's been cloudy most of the way, and I'm hoping that we're actually going to see the ground before our decision height. Nothing yet. So we need to turn inbound. We basically need to make our base turn onto final when we get to 8 DME. And we're coming up to 7 now. So I'm going back to heading mode.
Scottish Control, Speedbird 17 Tango, holding short, holding point Alpha 1 for runway 06. Correction, Speedbird 17 Tango, Scottish Control, runway 06, clear to be
I'm so pleased now to see the ground, see some lights, looking out to Thurso, Castown and North Coast.
Control, Easy 662 Yankee, we've been flight level 280.
662 Yankee, Scottish Control,
Tweet 3 Alpha arrival for...
Speedbird 2H at the path, turn to left heading 05.
Left heading 30.
Turning onto a course of 134 degrees now, which is the final approach course for runway 13. There's no ILS, there's no precision locator or anything. It's just the VOR, which is offset slightly from the runway, so you don't get lined up exactly, but you can correct visually. Localizer, that's the word I was looking for. There's no localizer. We're just at the base of the clouds here, and I am looking for the runway lights. And there they are, just to the right, in sort of the centre behind the windscreen pillar, as we'll see in a minute. And there's the runway. I'm so pleased to see it. Scottish Gamma 968 Charlie is final for runway 13 at Wick.
Gamma 968 Charlie, runway 16,
Clear to land runway 13, Gamma 968 Charlie. You'll notice there as well with the VATSIM radio propagation effects that because we're low down now, and we're probably quite a long way from the nearest Scottish Control transmitter, I don't know, antenna where that would be, that the controller is becoming quite difficult to read now. There's quite a lot of static and background noise, which I guess is correct really, because in the real world you'd be talking to Wick Tower at this point, not Scottish Control. So yeah, anyway, it kind of makes it difficult when there is only the center controller on a VATSIM. There's a setting on Xpilot to turn off radio effects, and maybe that's something I should look at for this sort of situation. But anyway, at the moment, so props have gone full forward. I've got the gear down. According to the glide slope path shown on the chart, we're now descending. I think I've probably got the first notch of flat. Yeah, at least the first notch of flat. It's probably the second by now. Aiming to get the airspeed down to around 100 knots and a nice steady descent rate. Kind of, we can see the PAPI lights now, so we're kind of looking for the 2 reds and 2 whites if we can. I think the wind is from the left here. I think it's a northeast wind, so we are crabbing slightly. Yeah, very difficult to read the controller now.
Speedbird 17 Tango, passing altitude 5,000 feet. Speedbird 17 Tango, climb to 4330. Climb flight level 330, Speedbird 17 Tango. Easy 54, landing at turn left heading 3057, descent slow, 80, vectors on left runway 05. Level 500.
Wembley down to 130. Again.
Some of the aircraft you can hear more clearly than the controller, I guess, because they're higher up and maybe closer to us.
119, decimal 7, schedule 101, bye.
Landing not too bad, a bit firm, but then I veer way off centre line. So I'm not quite sure what happened there, whether it was just not using the rudders right or whether it was the crosswind. I didn't think the crosswind was that strong. There is only really one taxi way, which is an exit from at the moment, and that would be Charlie, which is at the other end of the runway, so we're heading there. My plan was just to exit there, stop, and then call runway vacated.
Redirect Suburb Speedbird 17 Tango. 2005 Scottish.
So I'm off the runway now. I'm going to turn off the landing lights, put on the taxi light, turn off the strobe, I'm raising the flaps, I'm turning my transponder back to standby.
Yeah, 960 Charlie, taxi parking on the track.
Gamma 968 Charlie, repeat please. Taxi via Charlie. So I'm not entirely sure what was said there. I'm hoping it was taxi to parking via Charlie or something like that, because that's what we do. So yeah, there we go. That's my first full VATSIM flight, and it was a very intense experience. So much so that I had to put all the commentary on afterwards, I'm afraid. So target for the next flight's got to be to see whether I can not panic all the way through the flight, and yeah, maybe try and have some time to do the voiceover whilst I'm actually doing the flight. It was definitely fun. and definitely very immersive. So that's it for now. Thanks for watching.
Over to Unicorn, it's the Yankee, thank you.
Speedbridge 17 Tango, I'm closing on the Unicorn.
Unicorn 128, Speedbird 17 Tango, thank you.